Hi everyone, we're on Codebreaker Real Talk. We're back with Chad Cooper and myself, Veronica Bartolini. And this is kind of like an after show. And this is not really for the general public. It's for the people that follow what we've been talking about lately. Right, Chad?
Yeah, so we wanted to recap on that and follow up on it.
I know some people don't like the word awakening, but oh well, that's how the lingo goes for
Aware, awake.
understand, yeah. So take it away, Chad. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to draw just pay. Well, there's somebody out there online that's saying they want help and they want, someone to talk to them. They're going through an awakening process, and that's kind of our community. And I want to speak to them. Their name's Carl, and they're on Seeking the Truth or Seeking Truth. And Carl with the C, and he's in Canada. And he's hilarious. He does funny videos. Psychologically, he's genius when he comes to like make fun of people and but lift them up, sort of point out their flaw and uses humor to do that and stuff. People appreciate him for that. They also appreciate him for his reviews. He does seem to do pretty fair reviews. But he also goes around and criticizes. So I want to like talk to that and talk to you, Carl, and the community that we spoke to last week. We haven't come back on to talk about, the subject we talked about last time because that's all we really had for it. And Veronica really doesn't know much into Carl. I had to introduce that to her, and Veronica isn't really into gossip, so we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be talking to Carl, and for the benefit of those parties, just to like add our thoughts to their contemplation process when they're doing their own shows. And we'll give a shout out to the outer limits who like to comment of mine that I left on Carl's page, because I'm also known as ZenRayQ. And I joined their chat before and watch it silently, a lot often as well. And they're sort of a hub that ties in independent artists and what our independent artists are going through, in the community, as the narcissists sort of like aim towards them, or people that are sometimes, I don't want to say mental health issues, but like complications there. And and they address it, and they try to break people down and build them up. It's not like, they have to defend themselves, but they also don't want to destroy anybody to have to do that. So, it's a commendable thing for them to do. And so we want to just give them a shout out. And because they just did a show on Carl. And Carl is a person who spoke out against the Little family, who Rocco was, our subject of last week was uh at odds with at the time. And right now things have not gotten any better. So we'll leave that alone. I want to talk to Carl because, when it comes to the subject of being awake or aware, we've gone through quite a bit of that, and we're kind of coming out of it. It's always a journey. It's never really a destination, right? And there's different elements of it, because you can't fully illuminate. I mean, it's just where's the roof, on that. But they got to dial a little notch at a time and stuff. And so there's certain stages that you go through in this process, and kind of I see you like in one. And I just thank God every day that I, hop online and start a platform while I was going through this, for the last 4 years or longer. It takes quite a long time, and when you do open up to the spiritual world, you realize later than sooner, unfortunately, that there is somewhat of a spiritual war going on. And a lot of what's talking to you, you're trying to convince people that you're being spoken to by God and everything, and he does permeate everything. I get that, and I understand what you're saying by, is the Bible the word of God? Is it the word of man? And was it written about God or gods, and that creator being beyond, I understand that as well. So, but when I hear you using words like the chosen one, and you're calling out Upchurch, who's this independent artist for the country rap scene, that's not played on the mainstream, and everyone should check out because he's got brilliance and genius and all those sorts of aspects that shine through his work. And when you're asking him to admit that he's a chosen one, you know, I made a comment in your comments to you, and I'm not sure if you saw it or not. I haven't gone back to check to see if it was liked. I just saw that the Outer Limits liked it. But the comment made reference to the term because as a celebrity, you know, whatever you pay attention to, they give power to. And so if it's the term the chosen one, that may be what you're hearing now, and that's part of your journey, and that's great because a lot of times you're led down false paths, you know, so you just kind of got to stumble along the way until you find your footing. Um, and I'm saying that because there's this group out there that's known as the Orion groups. Now, I'm not going to go into, you know, aliens or interdimensionals or whether they're beside us or above us or behind us or underneath us, you know, that sort of thing. But the Orion group, you know, there's a lot of tributes paid to that. If you look into the Orion lines with Ryushin, he notes that like the Nazi death march was done in the constellation of the Orion, or all our military bases are in the constellation of Orion, or there's other things that people tattoo on them and stuff in tribute to Orion. Well, you know, the Orion Queen, I mean, who knows, you know, from what I understand, if you listen to like Ivan Teller, who's he's somebody I listen to, and he's very shadow banned, but he does connect to spirit, and not always is it a good spirit coming through, most likely, but he does have a way of detecting that, and he's aware of it, so he does filter it out, and so I listen to more of what he has to say because it's unique and it's heavily blocked. And Ivan Teller talks about the Orions as being like if the worst narcissist beyond anything you can imagine on this planet, beyond anything sadistic that you can imagine, and all sorts of things. And they'd like to use that term, the chosen ones. And so they would love anything more than to come to you as this loving being of light when you're first awakening and saying, you know, you've reached your destination and you're a chosen one. Just to get people to pray into that, right? So you got to be careful and cautious. It's not everybody's place to jump on there. Now, I mentioned, like, it's pretty clear to me that Ryan Upchurch is awake or aware or a chosen one, if that's what you would like to term this as, because he's creative, he's innovative, he's trailblazed his own frontier into country rap, you know, and I don't want to say beat the system, you know, and stuff like that, but he bypassed it. And so for him to come forward and give it, you know, with 3.5 million viewers, you know, that kind of attention, who's he given power to, you know? I remember, no, this one lady, Tina, not Tina Spalding, no, not Tina Spalding. She channels Jesus too, but somebody else that wrote books on Jeshua or Jesus, you know. And she talks about when her awakening happened, how she was misled by a spirit, you know, claiming to be God and Jesus. And
Pamela Ireland or no?
no, this is she's another I'll think of her name at the end or something, but she does channel Jesus. Tina, there's a couple Tinas. There's Tina Spalding, and then there's yeah, I'll think of it. I'm so sorry. I wasn't going to mention her. That's why I'm not prepared with it. We could always put it in the link, or I will under Zenra Q. But because she does, you know, she does still channel, but she feels like she's more on the right track. But how do we ever truly know? You know, you got to question everything that's given to you. I do, and then oftentimes you see something else, you know, and then as far as awakening, you know, when you pop into someone else's world and then you start talking about the children and everything and being concerned about the children, we all are, you know, and I understand. It's kind of like when you first hear about it, you're like, oh, I want everybody to hear about this. And then of course it got psyoped, you know, by the QAnon. And then because, you know, maybe that was something different than what it presented itself to be, but the information they were using, a lot of it was pretty legit, you know, and it was twisted in different ways, and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so these communities, from what I can tell, like when they were addressing the subject of last week, um, that we discussed, and that their response to their own kids and their own wife and stuff like that was not appropriate. And so they talk about focusing in on their own families, and being there for their kids and being the example that they want their kids to be in the world, and there to answer their questions and guide them through confusion into clarity, and all the things that they're going to be bombarded with, and teaching them how to support themselves and being active role models and parents in their life. That's what they talk about. We start first in our family, then we move out into the community, then we try to save the world. Because if you're under the illusion you're here to save the world, it is not here to be saved by you or any one of us. Unless you are the chosen one. And I hear you calling yourself a chosen one, not the chosen one, correct? And so, I want to take your words out of context, and so that's what I'd like to say that towards that to you. I mean, if you want to talk about awakening, I can dissect this as thin and then as too many layers as you would like. Um, because pretty soon, what I hear on your wife, being very colorful online with you, and you're making this public, and so part of you is putting your personal life out online, and you're going through this awakening, but it's a beautiful thing because I get to watch it. And I get to remember going through similar things and being thankful that I wasn't in a relationship, and being thankful my ass was not allowed online, because I had a lot of opinions that were based in depression. And that kind of that was like the hard wiring. So when you're talking about mental illness, which you've mentioned before and people have mentioned in regards to you and your mental health, and your psychological health and spiritual health and your emotional health and your physical health, there's many layers to that. And then when it comes to depression and marijuana smoking, because you're having troubles, with the stopping of smoking marijuana, and I understand that it's a way to self-medicate. And what marijuana does is it lifts you to a vibration of complacency. So if you're in a place of despair, yeah, smoke the shit out of the marijuana, whatever. But if you're looking to move beyond complacency and into love and into a loving relationship with your family, then maybe consider letting it go and taking those steps to face your fears and moving into it if you can. And if you can't, let's go ahead and dissect this and separate it into its layers. There's a spiritual war. Okay, because the spirits do get jealous of the 3D or 5D or 10D or 25D, whatever we're in. I'm not going to follow, they've lied about everything. So why should I believe any of it? Um, there's a spiritual war, and they're able to reach through a little clearer now, and especially with certain people as they elevate. And so set that aside. Then let's take the awareness of becoming aware that children are being used in the way they're being used. That I can really sorry, children, plug your ears, fuck your world up, Carl, with how deep I can take you down the rabbit hole. It goes a lot deeper than just kids. I mean, my friend, I can pull the carpet out from underneath your world and stand you on my stage, okay? And why I'm saying this is because people have fear, and so they're uncomfortable with the truth. And we gotta, like, as we awaken and get faced with it, it's horrifying. So you got to separate all the pressure that you're becoming aware of, all the kids and everything like that. And it's only going to get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper as you can take it. But it's not up to us to stand on soapboxes and say, I am a, we can't, it's not up to us to be on the soapboxes. Let the deities do that. Let those people that come down and are actually, look crazy, but they're genius, and they're, out there on their soapbox just preaching away. Nobody's listening except for the person that connects words and sees that they're making sense. So that's not up for us to get on it, and it's not up for them to get on it and start talking about the kids, or for Up Church to get on there and start talking about it and using their platform for that, because people are so scared of that, and it's so foreign to their world and their beliefs, and it takes away all their security. Um, they're going to cling to it, and so especially the narcissist, you're going to open yourself up. There's different ways to do it, and you whisper through art. That's what Tom Althouse, suggested that he did with The Matrix, and he was just on with us. I encourage everybody to go and watch him, since he has given Hollywood a run for their money here coming up short, and especially with his documentary. And as independent artists, you know, like the beautiful people we're watching, the Littles and the Upchurches and the Creek Squads and all those, you know, and the Wrens and the Chinchillas, whatever, all those people up and come, those bards and poets of the world, you know, we want their worlds to start being aware of each other as well, because he plays an important part in our future. And all the support, more support, the better, right, for each other. And so now, okay, I lost track. I'm sorry. But I know we were on talking about the awakening and everything, um, and the different layers. And then I'm going to backtrack. And then the stages you go through, and there's always the deceptive stage, and and then there's the wanting to step up on the soapbox stage and wanting everybody to, you know, because you're just floored. And then so as you separate the awakening and you separate the spiritual attack, and then your situational ones at home with family and wife and kids and dog and cats and smoking cigarettes and marijuana and all those things. You know, you take all those pressures, then you got to look at the hardwiring, because trust me, I've had my situation so bad where I felt sandwiched, you know, between a fryer and a trailer with no running water and everything else in the world, you know, spiritual attack and everything else coming in at me, and depression and then all sorts of things, right? And the family reacting to the depression, and I think they're acting to my intellect and thoughts and running from it. But because I have a little bit of a, I don't want to say Asperger's, but you know, I just learned recently, you don't talk about aliens with people. That's not casual conversation. So I curved my conversation now with that. Anyways, Carl, once you get down to the hardwiring, you know, there's the depression. So what is it? A genetic disposition? Um, you know, is it is it a sensitivity to something in the environment? You know, do you have a blood screen testing that you can do to see like what kind of vitamins you may be lacking, what kind of minerals you may be lacking, what kind of heavy metals you might be overabundant in, things like that, you know, because that has to do a lot with mental health and different things. We're going to say something to lithium to our subject matter of last week too, as well, because I believe Veronica has an aunt that, or somebody that was close to her, or an aunt of a friend, whatever, that behaved erratically on and similar fashions. And once they got on lithium, you know, they were perfectly at peace and normal. So maybe look at, you know, not you, Carl, I'm referring, but in a sense, you know, like we got to see, are we lacking in something that's vitamins, you know, in the mental health department, like our B's or D's or magnesiums or K's. Are we getting enough sunlight? Are you eating your food in the sunlight? What kind of foods are you eating? You know, you got to change your lifestyle as well. It's not just about taking the medication, okay? Because there is the medication aspect, and I understand where you're coming from it. And I don't necessarily agree where your wife is coming through with that, but I understand her perspective, okay, from where she stands in a scared position and then needing to fix it. You know, that is what the doctors are saying. And as we discussed, you can jump in anytime, Veronica, because but as we discussed in the last video, you know, doctors are some people's gods, and the scientists are too, and the government's their mommy daddies, you know, and so it's just you know, I don't want to rip her belief system out from her either, because she's coming from a very liberal, you know, and um segregate, you know, part of our community out there, I guess. I don't know how small it is, but we've definitely figured out who's got a lot of anger in them, and and is scared to look into truth, you know, and research and do things. So we want to respect that. And you want to take this on, because she's there to anchor you, so you don't fly away from one thing, because trust me, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and the more you react to each one, because we're empaths, you know, and so the the more it's going to spin you out, you know, and that's what she's trying to stop. So maybe she doesn't have the words that you need to hear, maybe, you know, but she's there to ground you, and your family's there to challenge you in the ways that you need to be challenged. And so that's why I encourage you to, when I said, you know, if it's not love, it's a call for love, and that's an ACIM lesson done by Joshua. That seems to, you know, apply in this situation, you know, especially towards your family. Um, But if it is the hardwiring and you've gone through and you're done the lifestyle change and you're doing the exercise and the dietary need, changes, and you've stopped the marijuana, or you're in a place where you feel comfortable to stop the marijuana because you got the bees and you're getting a good feeling inside from that. So you can say, okay, I don't feel that despair. I can let that go. And then, um, if you're still mentally, like in a good place, there's no stormy weather. Then yeah, you're right. Then you're right. Why take the medications? We don't need a spell cast upon us. But if you're still having organic thoughts, or you're still and having difficulty um, processing the information that's coming through you at a rapid pace, about kids and how this world functions and what we're in, um, along with all the games that are played with you spiritually along the way, um, then maybe medication would be, necessary or something in a smaller dosage. So that's what I have to say. It's not exactly, doctors are evil and medication's wrong, because yeah, we all know what it is. But if it's the Wi-Fi affecting us mentally, or if it's the electric grid they got built around us that's affecting us, or the 5G, or something else, that they send out through the fluorescent lights or through the food, and we're under this constant bombardment, then it's either make all those changes or go on the medication.
We also
Um,
have to talk
mhm.
about the EMF protection as well.
Yeah, because you got springs in your mattress, and that shit draws in all your Wi-Fi if you don't turn it off at night. If you're wearing metal jewelry, that pulls it in, right? Uh, what else I mean,
Yeah, the router, like if you're gonna have the router in your
mhm,
room, either put some shungite or like an argon
yeah,
cube that has copper in
yeah,
it. There's the lead thing that we talked about to protect our heart space. Those we were talking about, remember a long time ago, we were talking about getting the shields. There's also EMF blankets. Um, with what happens with the rabbit
mhm,
hole as far as the Orion group, that's like the alpha draconin mixed with the grays, and that has a lot to do with the NAZI, you know, DOD,
Project Paperclip.
IC, military
What
complex.
Tom mentioned in our last program about
Yeah.
Hitler going to South America, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so what they do is if you don't fall for certain things while you're going through the rabbit hole, they'll throw in the hey, the kids,
Mm,
that got to me a lot when I
mhm.
was going through my awakening. And then the chosen one, even Jamin Vasquez, I had him I've had him on the show with his sister Sylvia and you Vasquez. He talked about on the channel Unchaining Hearts when I was with Kate Camara, he said, that he was listening to voices in his head saying, you're the chosen one, you're the chosen one. And he asked me when we were live, he said, have you heard that as well? And I said, yes, I've heard that many times. And it also, I heard it many times, even when I was in the Christian church, you are the chosen one. And then when I left the church, it's like, well, you are the chosen one because you were in the super soldier program, and it's all this survival of fittest, not caring for the weak because you're it. So who cares, and then you have to break that program, got to go back to your heart. Um, that's what the Orion's group is mainly. If you notice, a lot of those humans that are stuck in that mentality, they have a narcissistic problem. And that's when they want
Yes.
all their views on TV, on YouTube. They want to be recognized as the one.
Hmm.
It gets into
And
so
he's online claiming to want, friends and people to join him, and not join him but he's alone. Like I'm lonely. I'm like, it's like, yep, that's what we all get to go
Everybody's
through,
lonely.
being alone. That's why we're out here talking to you, saying, hey, we're also awake.
Yeah,
We can talk about this. Where are you at? What do you want to know?
that's what they do.
Because
They put you
you
in,
got years ahead of you.
yeah, they put you in situations where, fine, you're not gonna join our team, the Orion group or whoever else, the Alpha Drax. You're not gonna join our team or the reptilians, we'll just say the people above the dome or below the dome, you're not gonna join our team. Okay, fine, then we'll just, you know what? We'll just get rid of all your friends and you're gonna be lonely. Well, guess what? I'm not lonely. That's the best that they could have ever done, because then all these layers are peeled off, like, oh, that program, oh, the chosen program, the kids, the Q program, the politics, religion, the love program, the twin flame program. I can go on and on.
Oh gosh, yeah, we can keep
Yeah.
going and going.
Yeah.
That twin flame program would be pretty interesting to get into one day, especially like in the paintings and all the, that era where they were trying to romance everybody and get them to be
Yeah.
attracted to each other. And now it's like the family era, they're trying to get us into family, and all that good stuff, which is great. I mean,
Yeah. When I was at the gym today,
um,
I was like, okay, well, if I had a twin flame, it would have
yeah.
to be male. He would have to be big as me, and he would have to be into the stuff that I'm in. He would have to be me, but just a male form. And then I pictured myself as me in my heart already. That's, because we were separated, right? When we came to Earth, you're separated from yourself, your other half, which is you,
Mhm.
your male aspect, and me or you, however you came in here. You know what I'm saying? And
Well, they say my other half is feminine. That's what I was told. I'm like, nah, I don't want it. But yeah, I was told that I'm very, 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 very feminine on the other side. I'm having a male experience to balance me out. So I don't know. Divine, yeah. So
so the whole thing of lack, that is their whole program, is they want us to feel like we're lacking that, but we're not. We're right here. We're right here in our heart. It's just that Hollywood, the movies of, oh, I need to get married, or I want somebody to tell me he loves me every night and hold
Disney,
me. Yeah, Disney, like,
Disney,
oh, you don't need to
rescue me on this white horse. Yeah.
rescue me now. No, and so when we come back to one, being you, whole, masculine, feminine, you'll know that you don't need to be a part of these programs. I mean, if you want to participate here on Earth because maybe you're bored, or you want to, then go ahead, get married, do whatever you want, but if you really want to find out who you are, you have to dissect yourself until you come to nothing, to the bare, you're just bones and blood, and who the fuck am I? You got to find that out before you're on your deathbed. Like Tom says, that the narcissistic person on their deathbed will say, I never knew who I was, or I never knew myself. That's pretty sad, because I'm not going to be there the last 5 minutes of your bed. You've already eaten there at your bed and breakfast, right? You've had your last meal. Well, I'm not going to sit there the last 5 minutes of your life and explain to you who you are. I'm sorry. You didn't want to do it before. It's too late. So you either choose to reincarnate, which that's another program too. I don't believe
I
that
feel
I'm
that.
back ever, because that is
Those are the rabbit holes we could take Carl down. That would
gosh,
be
yeah.
like, come on, let's just do it. Let's just let's take everyone down this rabbit hole. Carl, let's just go beyond the kids and talk about the reset.
Oh
Let's
gosh,
talk about fun shit like that.
the reset is also a psyop, because they
Oh no.
want
Maybe
that.
the one we're having now. Yeah, yeah. The one they're trying to make us feel like we're having now, perhaps. Yeah, but not the ones we had. Or do you think the ones we had were psyops? Because I've done the research into it,
I think the whole
and so
is part of the Mason and the Black Rock wanting the reset so that they can go to Bitcoin, but even that Bitcoin is
Yeah.
still
No,
flood.
I'm not talking about that reset. I'm talking about flood, fire, all those resets when everything gets
I don't want
restarted.
that. I don't want that for Mother
No,
Earth.
I understand.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I understand that, but we're heading into another one apparently. And you can see signs of it, you know, with the cities burning down, or they're trying to at least make it look like it, correct?
Yeah,
But the thing I'm talking about with the reset is the last reset we went to. Because if you really want to get into it, there's no evidence that slaves came over in ships because they don't have any replicas or they don't have those ships. They're nowhere to be seen or found. You know, if you want to look into the history of this country, Columbus came over here and was chopping the hands off of the Indians, correct? That didn't bring back the gold and raping the women. And then they were saying in the Library of Congress, if you look into some of those books that they have documented there, that that is documented that the Cherokee Indians were living in the plantations. All these buildings were already here. If you really look at them, they're mud flooded. You know, there's a couple layers that they're covered in mud. I can see it in my town. I can see it in every town I go into. They're covered in mud. You know, we didn't build any of these buildings. We don't even know how to repair them, let alone build them. The people do not have the technology. We don't have the skill set to even begin to build. Look at these capitals. Just go through each capital building of each state. Let's start there. Then move to the universities. Then move to the asylums, the old prisons. Look into the star forts. Look into how all the beaches are made. Look into some of our mountains. They're elephants that are petrified. They're titans, you know, and you can go through their ears. Look at the Mount Everest. That's a tree that broke and it's a trunk. Look at the West Coast. You know, it's a large entity that felt. There's lungs that are large as continents, like Iceland. You know, and as they defrost, those potholes are opening up. What are we living on? And so when you look at this dragon that's over there on Google Maps, you know, that's 3,000 miles long, and you look at these trees that must have been hundreds of miles tall. You know, we're living in a simulation because when you look at the reset and you look at all our historical pictures, what you'll notice in the past, and this includes Europe, because there's white-skinned, red-haired people buried in China, not Chinese people under in that dirt. You know, there was a reset and they were put there, and that's all Roman Greco architecture that has Oriental or Chinese or ornamentation put on the outside of it. You know, but it looks just like our Capitol buildings and everywhere else, and some of those buildings that got destroyed in Hawaii as well. You know, we're also like that. But these buildings were here. You know, we don't. The mortar in between these bricks comes from Germany. Look at you know, it's all technology that's on top of these buildings, you know. And so when you look into the world fairs, what you're going to discover is all our pictures, every single one of them that we have of the past, those black and whites, they've gone in and they painted in people. You'll see they're all painted in, every single one in the Smithsonian. Look them up online. They draw them in, they edit out certain things, they put the vanilla skies in. They've lied to us about our entire history. Black people may have already been here, and this was their technology. There was a reset. They went underground. That's why we have catacombs there where there's skulls and bones that are all polished, because we had to eat each other underground whenever the reset happened, the flood or the fire, whatever it was, burnt everything, because everything's burnt to a crisp. All these boulders and shit out here burnt down buildings and stuff that had been melted. These trees were petrified by something that, you know, think of Medusa, you know, there's some kind of technology. What are we living in, Carl? Let's take it there on the soapbox. Let's really take people out of their reality when daddy is the government and their doctor is the God, and they're scared to death. You know, they're going to look at you like a freak.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do again with the DEW, directed energy weapons, Hawaii, Turkey. The visions of the flood that I've had since 2016, 2017, the flood, California, everywhere in the US, you know, there's these floods that happen, there's these animals and people coming out of the flood, the oceans in California. Also I had visions in New York, Las Vegas, New Mexico. That's what they want to do, and because they want another GOV shutdown, and if that doesn't work with the floods and the fire, the volcano, then they're gonna do the fake alien invasion, you know.
Yeah, because when we go back to these pictures I was talking about in the Smithsonian, the oldest black and whites, and you look at these cities, there's nobody in them. There's a couple men in gray suits and some kind of hat. You see those little fuckers. You see them, you know, they bought the buildings and turned it into a Macy's. And then what do? We come in with our cardboards, these big, beautiful, gorgeous cement made by AI, you know, because it had to be done by like 3D printing or something. Nobody can chisel and carve like that, even though that's what they're saying. I mean, it's everywhere around the world, you know, and so there's nobody on the streets like who is living in these places. But that's when you start to get into the Cabbage Patch Kids and the orphan trains. All of a sudden Chicago has 80,000 premature babies that were born overnight, you know, and they want you to just come pick up your child, and then they have the trains bringing them back and forth and all that kind of shit. You know, we had to come over here and clear the train tracks off, clear the roads off, and clear off the mud from everything. That's what they did. That's what they were doing during the Civil War. You know, those cannons are not cannons. They were devices. If you look at the back, they have little teeth on them that twisted, and you put the rocks and those balls in there, and it broke everything down into a thing. For probably the 3D printing or whatever they did with AI, because that's the only thing that can explain this technology to me.
The plasma that they used, I mean, 3D printing, we can get into the pyramid.
Mhm.
Well, you know, and then the Atlantean times technology. If you look at Dark
Yeah,
Journal,
there's been one reset after another after another.
if you look at Dark Journalist, he talks about the two lights that we see now with the sun. It's like Lucifer and Satan, but it's actually Armon, and he uses another name. Okay, and so those two are what you see when there's a rainbow. When it rains, there's the two rainbows. That's actually the two arcs that were here in Atlantean times, and now, you know, and it's a system. I know I don't like to talk about too much Ashiana Dean, because that's also some good stuff, some bad, but she does talk about
Because they
war.
give you they give you good information, but it's how much of
Yeah,
this one, not really, you know, because she's definitely talking to something. She's definitely getting downloads, right, Carl? I mean, there's no doubt these people are getting downloads, right? Look at Ashiana Dean, look at Akura, look at you know, this other lady that claims to have a trans, you know, I do believe them, but what the fuck are they talking to? Because they aren't getting the truth. They're getting everything handed to them. Here's all the answers. Here's your history. Here's everything handed to you in a nice little package, and it's got a bow on it too, you know, with love. No, that's not how we ever get we don't ever do everything.
so these we'll say people, Canes, I don't really like to call them aliens or ETs, but these people above and below the dome, the God Wars that I talk about,
Yep.
the God Wars, they're trying to
How
get
big are they? How big are those people? My God. I mean, those planets that we're seeing out there, the little things you see in our skin in the interstitium, according to the Mud Fossil University. You know, you have to look at the things in a telescope out there and you have to see them in a microscope. And how big was that being?
Yeah,
And then it just gets bigger and bigger, and it also gets smaller and smaller. So, you know,
because that's what they want. They want us, ultimately humans, to go through the nanotechnology of being transcendent, like the Johnny Depp movie, or the Wonder Woman 1984, where the guy discovers the genie bottle, then he becomes a genie, and then he's like, I'm gonna go through this, you know, satellite wormhole, and then I'm gonna be God. And in particle beings, they're trying to get us to go back to the mineral particle beings that we supposedly started with. Dark Journalist talks about this. Why the F would we want to go back to that? I mean, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. You know, when we leave this earth, we're gonna go back home in particle form, and then we'll be whatever F we want. But these people, through CERN, want us, the collective, to go to the new Earth. Yeah, you know what the new Earth is? You don't want to know. It's the whole particle thing. They want to take us through their fucking bullshit section, through the wormholes, to get, you know, to establish their NAZI world over there. I do not consent. Nope.
Is it Max McLaughlin or something, the smartest kid in the world? He talks about CERN and how they're trying to connect us to parallel dimensions and everything. But, you know, I believe in that as well. I think that's great of him to say. But then he also quotes Einstein, and he's been disproven. So, I mean,
because he's,
you know, get with it, Max.
Controlled opposition.
And he's got controllers by him, too. I can see that. He's got handlers near him.
Yeah, he has.
I hope he's smart enough to look and see through that. But
I hope so. Unless they're promising him eternal life, like they're promising all these other people.
So when we talk about this reset, Carl, yeah, when we talk about this reset, Carl, and I talk about all the old photos, how they were doctored, every single one of them, Photoshop doctrine. They had colleges and people sketching in. They would take a lady that had 4 chins and give her one, and then a lady that they did this with every single photo is photoshopped. Nothing in our history is accurate. There was never the cowboys and Indians like they just depicted. They moved the Indians out of the plantations, that used to run this technology. After the reset, people came up from out underground after eating each other and surviving and had to figure everything out. How smart are we? Because I'm telling you right now, the narcissist far left, the woke folk, feel like we're really fucking advanced. We're living in their, we can't even, we build little wooden things. Okay. This is what that bastard, Mark Twain, wrote about in Huckleberry Finn when he lied about all that history there. He was traveling across in his train and he noticed the farmhouse next to a big old castle because that's what people had to do. There was no way to heat these large buildings. He dedicated it to some government building or something like that through some tapestries in there on the wall. And that's what he's quoted saying in his own journals, traveling across as he's making up this whole Huckleberry Finn and thing that he's going to feed to all the orphans, right, that are forced to go to school. Because remember, back in the day, there was the sane asylums that housed thousands. I mean, they were just ginormous buildings. You couldn't build these reasonably. And they're talking about, oh, so and so built it in a couple years and it helmed all these, and then there was so it started with the orphans coming up out of the blue. All these kids were in factories. Just look at the old pitch. All of a sudden there's and then there's the 20s, and then there's the technology coming through that they're trying to rediscover and put out there and get everything implemented. So what are we living in exactly? It's not a reality. But
We're living on a
I was going
cemetery.
to say,
We're living on top of a cemetery, on top of a cemetery, on top of another cemetery, on top of another.
oh yeah, when you get under, forget about it. They say the architecture becomes amazing, especially when it starts to look very natural. And they say it also gets larger and larger and larger and larger. So what's down there, I hear all sorts of rumors of what's down below us, and who's to say what we're on or not? It may be much larger than what we've anticipated, or it may be in a dome.
And then Antarctica.
Yeah, because when you get into the flat Earth thing, though, it's better not to say it. It's better just to say, not a globe or something, because what happens is in every single community it's infiltrated, and the example that was given was the Black Lives Matters. It was started by Black people that really cared and had a passion, and then they were murdered, right? Or mysteriously off or died or suicided or whatever happened. And then it was taken over by the Black lesbians that, bought up 4 mansions with it. So everything gets infiltrated, including the flat earth movement. And that was one theory. You can laugh at it all you want. I always said, well, my words have to connect. And if I fall in this hole, I have to climb my way out. That's a tough one to climb your way out, because there's some definite strong points to be had, and especially Antarctica.
Yeah, the way I see Earth is like, okay, I have a matchbox here. This is Earth, and then there's a concave mirror.
Yeah.
And a concave one.
Or how about here's Earth, and here's a little concave right over here, and that's where we live in this little crater over here, in this little concave. But there's this big, huge land out here that has beasts that apparently are as big as mountains, because all the biology's there. Elephants turn to stone, and beings that are 2,000. I mean, geez, the size just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. As a matter of fact, when you break it down, Soul University points out that on all those old maps that existed well before Columbus, and it has all the names of the cities over here.
Columbus
already on it, and especially Chicago.
Columbus is also a psyop to get people to, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll do it whatever you want. Yeah, there's a God. Oh my gosh, there's a hell. Oh my gosh, to get.
Are you talking about Lady Columbus or the lady statue?
I'm talking about the fake Christopher Columbus crap.
Columbia.
Christopher Columbus.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And then even the slave thing, like, do you really? I mean, imagine telling a group of people, like, you were from tribes in the country over here, and you got sold out by your own people into slavery. If that's not the truth, I'm saying if, I'm not going to if you really want to hold on to your history, go right on ahead, because there's things we can talk about in other histories too that are, all of them are false, you know. Even the Greek history into homosexuality and stuff was misportrayed and everything. So their history
Talk
is
about
incorrect
that.
there. You know, there's a true, yeah, I will then.
Yeah.
Um, but they will lie to you about your histories. What was the one that I was just saying? Sorry.
The Greek and the Roman, and how the Greeks were all gay, and no, not all of them.
Okay, that one. Yeah, that's what I segued into, and then I said I had a scroll moment and went there because, from my understanding of it, you know, there's murals and everything of homosexuality and all that kind of stuff. All right, fine, you know, but they were certain buildings. 95% of the murals over there are not depicting that; they're depicting something else. It's not like everybody was sleeping with each other. What they were showing, and so they say in the Bible, like, okay, this city was destroyed because men were sleeping with, you know, or whatever it was. I think what it was is congregating together, because then, you know, there's the F word out there, what, faggot, I think is what it is, you know. And so I'd like to say F word, you know, not every gay man is an F word, and not every F word is a gay man. There's some straight faggots out there too. You know, I'm just going to say you know, they're drama queens or whatever you want to call them, you know. Same with the N word. Not every black person's an N word, right? You know, but not every N word is a black person. You know, there's some white ones. So you gotta, it's important, I think, that as humanity, and because we're all ingredients, you know, that we don't get together. You know, we're 1 out of 10, so we should disperse and be part of humanity because it balances out that way. Once you get together, then you just kind of get into that F word community type mentality. You know, I mean, I can't date because I won't date anybody that's not on Grindr. Does that exist out there? You know, Will and Grace ruined that whole entire thing. So that history was lied to. You know, so we empower ourselves with that Greek and the Romans, you know, and they were all this, you know, but that's not exactly what happened. We have to rediscover our history and what happened in these eras. You know, you're talking about Joshua and everything, and Jesus, and walking around, you know, with donkeys, you know, when they had ships like the Titanic and trains and buildings that reached the sky and floating cities and these dirigibles and all these balloons. And if you look at the old menus of America, they're very advanced, way more advanced than anything we have today. Soup du jour, soup d'anglaise, this and that from all over the world. And then the fairs came out that miraculously burnt down because they weren't built to last, right? 200 million square feet of cutting down forests, flattening, surveying land, building canals, building fountains, and making electricity, laying all the woodwork, chopping down forests in the days of wagons, and then building something that was temporary, whatever. We don't believe. That's when our American diet came out. You know, ice cream, hot dogs. That's when that was introduced. Cowboy food. You know, that's when we were introduced that food in our culture through TV, and that's what actors are for. That's why you see a lot of actors that look like they repeat themselves. Who is this person? This, you know, Ellen DeGeneres looks like Abraham. This person looks like this person because they've been cloning. So when we're talking about the narcissists and everybody, you know, and those people that seem to be empaths, are we talking about those of us that are real versus those of us that are the incubator babies, the Cabbage Patch Kids? You know, I don't know. I'm just curious. There's a lot to explore here.
There's a lot of
The
technology.
narcissist that society will reject.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a lot of technology. If you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, the last one, where Caesar's there, and
Yeah,
you know, and the time travel.
yeah. And you
But
can go in these temples and watch these people exploring them. They have stones that turn with gears on them that are statues. You know, they're technologies. Yeah, so I'm going, we both froze, Veronica, because I don't know if I was heard or if you heard me, but I was talking about, you were saying, you know, a lot of this stuff that we see around us is technologies and stuff. And there's a guy online that goes around and explores them. And some of these pillars and stuff actually move and turn, and you can tell they're technology and things that existed, you know, highly advanced things. And even our churches, you know, because Carl gets into like, is it man that wrote the Bible, or is it God or gods, you know? And I've heard a lot of people say if you interpret the Bible as gods, it makes a lot of sense, you know, especially the one that was talking about it's okay to sell your children into slavery, and 7 years later you can come get your boys, but the girls are slaves for lives. Or it's okay to go in this town and do this, or it's not okay, you know, or it's not okay for men to sleep together, you know, in Greece, and go over there, because what they were saying it's not okay with is it's not together to just accumulate and then become, you know, uh a not great version of yourself, you know, because we all need balance. You can't be an extreme version of your personality. You know, we'd all love that. That would be utopia, but we don't live there. You know, we live on this planet. We got to live together as a group. And so why, you know, do that? So the churches and stuff, they've been here, and you know their technology pulls the ether down. You can see how everything is structured in there. I mean, there's many hours of videos on this if you look into it. John Levy, um, you know, he gets into the reset, and so do other people. And so,
Even their hats,
oh,
their phone hats, the way they
yeah.
some
Well, the
people
symbology on everything has been repurposed, like the cross. You know, what hats are you talking about?
like the cardinals and the popes, they say,
Mm,
oh, that's because they're
yeah,
Asian and because their head is structured. Yeah,
yeah.
well, it's also to call the energies, you know, because it's above the dome that they
Hmm.
have these technologies. It's also to
Yeah.
call the
And it wasn't
technology.
used for religion before, I don't think. I mean, I think people did sing because it does amplify sound, but then the sound through the technology, the way it's shaped on these windows and the you know, it sent it out into the community. So they were changing the vibration of the world around them by, you know, this whole, it was all one big circuit, this whole planet. You know, when you look at everything, it made like a complete circuit. All the buildings had a purpose, you know, and a design to them, and especially those churches, because the way they're designed, it almost seemed like they're trying to predict the resets, they said, because they'd have like, you know, a long, narrow thing, and then, you know, the way it casts the shadows and stuff for the reset. But then it also pulls down energy into it. But then if you're in there, the way the sound is, the way it amplifies, and you know, people with the good ear knows how it is with choirs and stuff in a church. I mean, it amplifies that sound and it sends it out into the community. So, you know, the cross on top of the church and everything is actually to pull down ether. And it's one of the basic fundamental designs of when you break things down microscopically, you know, and you go down into our building blocks and stuff. It's just, you know, and uh, so it's all designed to, you know, for a different purpose. And then it was called for the house of God and changed into religious, you know. So the churches weren't even built for the reasons we think they are. And we're sitting here arguing about all this. This is just interesting. It's one big experiment. I mean, even in Europe, I mean, you look at their pictures and there was a reset there too. I mean, they're lied to about their history. You know, you see just as much architecture, Roman Greco architecture over here as you do over there. It's just they didn't get hit. You know, you can tell the United States got hit hard by whatever happened in that last reset. So these are so there's a lot to talk about, Carl, and we don't want to go ripping people. That's why we said this isn't for the general public, because we don't want to defend ourselves, and we do a lot of research into this. I'm going to open up a website here soon, hopefully, because I got yeah, I know I've been fighting depression, all that kind of stuff, but then I had kind of, you know, a struggle because I got templates that require a stronger WordPress or whatever, and it's another $250 on top of everything, right when I don't have, you know, after taking that vacation with for Rocco, and then getting my car insurance paid for and stuff 6 months in advance and everything this month. So I'm working towards it, but it's my goal to prove that 90 to 95% of academia is incorrect. You know, I'm gonna Wikipedia and all those, you know, the more books you read, the more brainwashed you are, sorry, because everything is a lie about our history. Everything, you know. I think they pulled the energy down from the atmosphere in our last one, and in this one they decided, because you can see it in the old postcards and stuff. They're talking about having like governmental meetings and stuff about with aristocrats about girdling the world grid of electricity. That basically imprisons us, you know, and depresses us, because this the first
Well,
signs of mental insanity was around when the electricity came out, and it was with the telephone operators. Nobody knew even had a word for anxiety until there was electricity. And electricity has its own has its own entity in it. That's plasma.
and we harness it with the
Mhm.
the rayos, how do you say, the thunder, the lightning, that is all they, in this world, they have learned how to harness that energy and their entities, their ether, water, you know, electricity is also an entity. you know,
Especially water. Especially water. My gosh, there's so much you can get from water. You just ask it,
water is so beautiful.
look into it. Yeah. And our trees are just little tiny twigs compared to what used to be. Um, a lot of our mountains are the stumps. If you'll see the comparison, it's all there. The biology, the what I call it is geography and biology. So we're biological, right? And then there's geography out there, which is the land masses, and it's where the two meet. And you find out that it's all biology. Every rock, everything was petrified in this mud flood or this thing, right away, instantaneously, and it was a lot larger than we are. I
There's
had
no,
an interesting yeah, this interesting theory about the old maps and stuff. I was going to say this earlier to you, Veronica, was they depict all sea monsters in there. Mud Fossil University said, if you had a dragon as big as the one that's depicted on the skull, so you look at Africa and it looks like a skull, and Madagascar is the cartilage nodes sliding off, and Lake Chad is the eyeball. And then if you look at South America, it looks like the jaw sliding off and everything. And then if you look at the top of the skull, it has like almost like a dragon tattoo. I'm sorry, but they tell about this folklore of a large dragon that Zeus hit with the thunderbolt or something, lured it in with the fish, and you see it going to spewing its venom or whatever out of its throat, and all the biology of its throat and everything. It's two or 3,000 miles long. You can see where the guano comes out. You can see where it's got a bird digestive system. You can see its legs looks like thighs of a man, just like they depicted in the old folklore. All these things, but it's something not large. They say that on a cellular level, that their cells are the same size as us. There's just a lot more of them. So their blood cells don't get larger, their cells don't get larger. But what's interesting is what if the parasites and the viruses do? If they match the size of the body, because if those things died, what would crawl out of it and into those oceans that we just got flooded with? That would be those sea monsters that they were hunting back in the day, and all those legends and everything that come in. But that was an interesting theory. I thought I just wanted to throw that at our community.
glad you did.
Um,
The sea
yeah,
monster,
and we're the bacteria. That's my theory, because we are bacteria,
yeah, you
and we're
know,
about that tiny.
the one that's like King Kong against the right, it kind of
Oh,
looks like a rhinoceros, but it has all these spokes on its back, that kind of dinosaur.
I
They were
forget the
talking
name of
about,
it, but yeah,
huh?
I forget the name of it. I know the one
Yeah.
you're talking about.
So it harnesses energy. And if it were, they used it in the past, supposedly they used it that it can create an EMP. That animal,
Wow.
I forget the movie. I don't know. I think it's the last, when it's King Kong against the water being. I think it's that last movie.
Godzilla, I remember, or
Godzilla.
was it King Kong and Godzilla team up against another one or something? Those were pretty good. I remember there's something when I was getting
It's
into it.
the last one where it's Godzilla against another being, or Godzilla by itself,
Yeah.
or whatever. But they're talking about how this being harnesses so much energy that it can pretty much give a nuclear um
Well, and
scenario.
who's to say these things don't really still exist, right? I mean, underneath us, they were here before, not that long ago, and they
My friend,
go.
what's his name? He goes by Fire Horse. He put out a picture of this ginormous langosta. It's a lobster as big as the ship, and there's three men
Mm,
looking at it, like smiling because they captured it. I'm like, what the heck is down there? A lot is down there in the
yeah,
ocean.
who knows what's in our oceans? Oh my gosh, I know. Um, yeah.
So what's in our system? We got
Yeah,
to
so we don't want to
in our system as well. Our brain looks like a
parasites, yeah.
stomach, our large intestine, small intestine, they look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into the whole Anubis thing. Why do they take out all of our system when if somebody wants to be, put on Earth again, buried, they take out all your system. What did Anubis do? What if those things are still? I'm sure those things are still living. Our brain is still living, and then they take it. What do they do with those? They have our memory, they have our DNA. What do they do with those? They make other ones of us? What do they do with that stuff?
Where do these incubators babies come from? Where do we come from? How come some people are different than others? They got empathy and other people don't.
Right.
Um,
The
you
movie
know,
with
but we got to decide. I mean, ultimately, Carl, what's important is for us to decide who are we and what's next for us. If everything about us is a lie, our history, our gay history, or whatever history that was, our Black history, our American Indian, his Native American history. If these people were highly advanced people that lived here, not coming from tribes where their people sold them out, what a much different story that would be for them to feel empowered by. We don't come from slaves. Oh, we weren't sold out by our own. Those ships don't even exist, and they can't prove they exist. I'm not saying that there wasn't a day of slavery, when the plantations were used for cotton and other things to get, things going, and wooden things built around these big stone buildings so that we had heated places to live in. It's funny too, because when you get into the way these places used to heat themselves, it was, I believe, with uranium, something like that, is that metal that glows, and puts off heat and light and stuff, because those,
comes from
yeah,
Africa,
because those,
comes from the saddle. I mean, the meteorite that hit in Africa, and
yeah.
get
Oh
really
yeah, they
right.
use that. They used to use that to heat. That's what it used to be in all these buildings. That's why they couldn't figure it out. The queens and kings lived in castles, but they all lived in their tiny little bedroom because they couldn't heat the castle. It was drafty and cold because they used to use uranium inside those fireplaces. That's why they're so ornate and decorate. And they only have like a little pipe to let certain things out. And they put metal plates on them too to protect people. But these aristocrats that moved here, the men in the gray suits, our forefather, whatever people, the ones that you see in all the photographs, instead of people in the streets, you see them standing by buildings, men in gray suits and hats. Um, they would go into these, they lived inside the nice houses while everybody else lived out. They tried to say Lincoln lived in a cabin. Bullshit. There was like all these buildings were here. They didn't live in a cabin. There was no Mary Ingalls and Pa. There was none of that type of stuff. But they would go into these homes and they had all the uranium. Well, they'd pile it up because there was comic strips of it, and I think that's why they wore wigs, not because they didn't know how to quite put a barrier between them, and they got too cold, but they had their own heat and electricity and light going on inside there while everybody else was out there living in cabins like mom and pa or whatever for a generation. But that's why they lost their hair and wore wigs. That's a rumor. I think that's funny.
You're right.
um
And there's
yeah,
like,
but if you look back in the 50s, everything was uranium. They had food warmers that were uranium. They had heat warmers that were uranium because it just puts off heat, and its half lifetime is like 15,000 years or 1,500 years, something like that. I don't know, which is its half life. So it's putting out heat and light for you at the same time, because the light will even go through metal and it'll glow, or whatnot. So that's how they were heating things in these big buildings. And now they try to put fires in there and fireplace. It's ridiculous.
yeah. And then now, people are still using microwaves, and microwaves are so bad. They radiate your heart, they radiate your brain, they fry they pretty much want to fry your
Mhm. They burned down Hawaii. They burned down Paradise. They do all sorts of things. Microwaves.
they could put holes.
They burn down houses and leave trees standing. Let's put it that way. So,
Did you
or
want to,
whatever's going on.
yeah, did you want to say anything else before we go, Chad? Please
Yeah,
send
it's just
all
that.
those links.
Yeah, it's just to Carl and the community. It's an awkward thing to go through an awakening, and it's many stages, and it's tricky, and you do get to go crazy and lose yourself and then find yourself, if you're lucky, or if you're strong, and if you're willing. It's just it's a quickening stage, there, and you get separated from the community of other awakened people so that you could um trauma creates and brings out the best in you in some ways, and so this is their loving way of doing that in a sense. Let's go ahead and just take all these fundamentals, and so you're doing it online, and that's interesting for me to get to watch, and we'll be there for you. I'm not going to try to comment too much because I don't want to be preachy or anything. I don't know shit. I've been through it, and I've been going through it for a while, and I'm just now sort of getting stable from that process. There's a lot of things on your own thinking and beliefs, and then figure out. And what's interesting is at the end, your guides and everybody kind of step away at one point. And you think it's going to be for a few days, you think it's for a few months, and then you think it's for a few years, and then pretty soon you're like, where the hell are you people? The training wheels come off, and then you start to get them back. So there's also different parts of this, and it is kind of going crazy and losing your sanity, but in a way awakening. And it's like the coal and the diamond theory. You got to be put under pressure to become clear, I guess, and hard like a diamond.
Gotta clear
Um,
yourself. Gotta clear your mind.
yeah. So I support you. I don't want to say anything negative to you. I just wanted to talk to you and just say some things so you get the idea. It's not fun having the floor ripped out. I just did that to you for fun. Just pulling us back into the reset, and it goes on and on and on, because this is a multi-layered world. Wait till you start getting into the spiritual world, and who's what, and what's an angel, what's a demon, what's a spirit,
Dude, when I had my
what's the
awakening,
astral,
forget about
what's
it.
another dimension.
Yeah, the light came out of my heart. I was like, I could see the demons, I could see the dragon, the Dracos, the dragons, the Chileans, I could see all kinds of stuff. And I think I slept with the light on for maybe 30
Mhm.
days to a month and a half, because I was seeing so
Yeah.
much. And I had already shut that down because I was born with these abilities, and I had shut it down. And then I'm like, well, god dang, now I just can't. I don't think I want to shut them down. I just have to live through it and get over the being frightened and all that, and know who you are. And that's when the whole key to this earth, to this life, is knowing who you are, so that these things don't take control over you.
Yeah.
That's what we started with, the chosen. Don't let the chosen
Yeah,
minds
and it's
get to you.
and when you go through your awakening later, Carl, too, like she started hers at a young age, but it wasn't any easier. She had her own challenges because we're all quickened, we're all strengthened and forced to face ourselves and our own, blind spots and all those kind of things. But what happened to you, Carl, was it happens later in age, and tragedy brought it on, and unfortunate circumstance at the work, and how they treated you and what they tried to do, and then pushed you and pressured you and all this stuff. And so with the marijuana smoking and with the wife not being on board and the family splitting apart, it's now time to maybe um bring love, into the situation and see what you get, and maybe step back, because the soapbox isn't for us. We're not meant to preach it. It feels like it in the beginning, so I get it, but it's not up to the littles to be preaching. They're doing their thing. I see what they're doing for the kids. I'm sure Upchurch is doing his thing for them too, but it's not for them to step down so you can take a platform and confront Trudeau, that clone, or that whatever it is that we're dealing with. I mean, did you hear me talk about the reset? Who are these people? Do we really want to talk about how the elite are raised in the MKU programs that they have to go through in the Illuminati? Arizona Wilder talked about it before, and other people have confirmed it. They're all they're all, they view themselves as being something different than us. So do you really that? And the way it's organized too is, I guess the 1% is always going to be here, so we can't get rid of them, right? I mean, we can definitely take our power back from them, but I don't think there's getting rid of them. There's our peace for 1,000 years, and then they repower and they come in, and it's back and forth, and that's the way it's always been. And that's the reality we choose to come into for whatever reasons, and the lessons. And everybody's here for different reasons. Some are in prison, they're in prison. Some people are here to learn. Some people are here to, it's hard to say, what it, so let everybody be in their place, including those that are asleep, like your wife. She's beautifully there to anchor you in and keep your head pulled out of the clouds, because we can easily shoot to the moon. And if you really want to talk about the moon, go take the temperature of the light reflecting off of it. It's colder than when you stand in the shadow at night. And if it's reflecting back the sunlight, it should be warmer. So we can keep going and going about what's reality and not reality here, in regards to science and stuff. Um, but it's up for people to come up to us for that stuff, you know. It's kind of like the drag queen thing, you know, in the kids, you know, like that seems to be a big thing right now. And I have a family that really supports drag queens reading to the kids, and I get it and I understand that. And under certain circumstances, I absolutely agree that it is a beautiful thing to have a drag queen and being animated and reading to kids. However, if it's the kids going to the drag queen for that and not the drag queen going into the kids or to where the kids are for that, you know, because that's an open doorway into something else. And um,
That's part of the Terra papers. If Carl gets a chance to read the Terra papers about the SSS queens and the SSS kings,
mhm,
that's what the whole triangle, the feminine and the masculine
yeah,
triangles about, and how they're
yeah,
off to, I think they're in Sirius B or in Orion, and they're broadcasting what they want. That's
yeah.
what we started with, how the voice to skull affects you, and you know, you could wear a beanie hat
Oh
that
yeah, the voice to skull. You know, that's another thing to discover. You know, they have technology that talks to you, and then I've seen it on Channeling Eric, but with the transgender thing, he does talk on that a little bit. And that's why I wanted to mention it because it's not okay for them to go infiltrate our kids' world and go into their world. Opens the door for pedophilia, and he knows that. But it's okay for the kids to go into their world if they feel like getting a story time by a drag queen. You know, that could be very fun and entertaining if done appropriately. But it's also not your place to go forcing yourself into other people's
yeah,
world and trying to open them up when they're not ready. Their timing will happen when it's okay for them to come to you though.
that's just, we
It's
just,
okay for them to come to you, buddy.
we have to be careful what kind of code words they're using for the kids too, because there's a lot of code words
Mhm.
in books that are used to manipulate kids, and through MK Ultra, again, going back to voice to
Oh,
skull,
that's true too. Yeah.
you gotta be careful
Yeah.
all the way around.
Mhm.
So Chad, how can they get a hold of you? And Carl, we will go ahead and tag you on this video. Please don't take it personal.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Don't take it personal. Ah,
No, please don't. You know, you wanted someone to talk to you. I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to do it in a way that everybody, you know, that I want you to hear things. And I
maybe
just wanted to, you
show.
know, I mean, hopefully there's people that don't want to hear what I have to say aren't going to hear it. It's not like it gets out, you know, we can know about this and talk about it, but ultimately the simulation's happening for a reason and they don't want us to tear it down, and whatever's orchestrating it isn't going to let us. But so we don't really have a place, you know, until that presents itself. And so do you,
We
and keep
say right
reviewing and keep being funny and keep and be there for your family, you know, let them anchor you and let them and let you guys figure this out together, you know. That's what we want to encourage the most. Unless you're in an abusive situation, you know, and stuff, then you have to get out. But ultimately what your wife's is going to discover is you know, you get off the marijuana, you get hardwiring figured out, you know, you get your blood figured out and you get what you need figured out, and then you're on whatever medication that you might need for whatever. And
and then
you're still going to be talking like what she considers crazy. You're just not going to want to be on the soapbox. You're not going to be wanting to, you know, that's the mental part that they're in, the crazy part. But what they don't get, this woke folk, they think once we take the medication, we're going to be, everything's going to go back to normal. Oh no, we'll just be talking about the same thing, but much calmer. You know, that don't go away, so you don't have to worry about that, okay? It's not curing us of our crazy. We're not crazy. They have to see it that way to protect themselves. They're afraid,
they're afraid.
rightfully so.
They are very afraid. And like that actor, what is his name, with A Few Good Men? They can't handle the truth. So
Yeah.
you can't handle the truth, god dang it.
Whew. Gosh, that would be something. Just here's the truth. Could you imagine? Oh my gosh, there would be anarchy. It would be like,
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be.
A lot of people would be flying off buildings if, you know, what I had is what Lauren Pritchard Alexis calls is an ambush awakening. I'm like, damn, I saw everything. Like,
Oh, you did. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, it was like,
Mine was kind of slow. Yeah, mine was reading a book. I did the I
oh,
with Paul Selig.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was slow too, but the one that was huge was the ambush. But what book were you reading?
Oh, the Paul Selig I am. He channels it and he does it
Oh,
in
yeah.
front of audiences of 300 and it just comes out boom, boom, boom. It's perfect it's perfect text. It's like immaculate. So you have to wonder, you know, it's considered Melchizedek and stuff. That's how I got started, but I'm not doing connecting outside myself at more than I am inside, you know, but that's what started it because those beings do start to work with you and you do have experiences and you do go through periods where you're walking on clouds and everything feels peaceful and you're in la la land. They're flooding you with love and then it all goes away. And then you go through it for another year and then you have another one of those waking up and yeah, you go crazy through it and you lose yourself and then you find yourself, you know, in the process and we're here for you through that if you would like. I just wanted you to know that instead of commenting in your comments because how far is that going to be heard? You know, I have to talk to you and stuff. And then if anybody else gets anything out of this, you know, that's good too. We're here supporting the little family and what they're doing as independent artists and Upchurch and Ren and Tom and all these people that are doing this. So
We're
we
doing
appreciate you.
we appreciate
Yeah.
you. And maybe you'll be wanting to be on the show one day and just asking us questions. Or if anybody else wants to book a reading entails pretty much this, what we do, Chad and I, we do, I mean, I don't have to do tarot, but the coaching calls and the dream interpretation and hey, was I in this program? Hey, was I in that? That's pretty much what we do here. Chad and I, and so he also does other things that'll help you to recall memories. I don't want to call it the Q, you know, blah, blah, blah thing, because we talked about that, but we'll say regression, if you'd like a regression from Chad. But we are here for you, the public, if they want to book a session with us. We have all kinds of stuff out there that we can help you with. So with
Yeah, I
that,
can be reached on Instagram and Facebook.
yes.
And then I'm known to that community online. YouTube is ZenRayQ, even though I'm very discreet. I don't think they'd recognize me. I just pop in the comments every once in a while and hit the like button and watch everything. I watch everything
Are you
and
still
hear every word.
on Twitter, X? Are you still on X?
I don't think so. I think I am, but I haven't been there in so long. I don't know. I'll have to go check. I probably am. Bad, I'm bad, I'm bad.
It's okay. I'll tag you on Instagram like I always do, and then I'll upload the video right now on YouTube. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chad, so much
Thank
for
you.
this. We needed this talk.
Thank you, Carl.
We'll do another after show. We'll call it the after show with Chad and Veronica. Thanks, guys. Love you. See you later. Love you, Chad.
Love you too.